I am going to hand this over to Trevor and Paul. As mentioned, they have updated information on their deal. A very interesting asset class that has never been brought to this group before. So I'm going to hand it over to Paul and Trevor. Right, Paul? Trevor?
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to start. Paul's going to get in the middle, and then I'm going to wrap us up and make sure that we do it. So first of all, thank you, David, and thank you to Candace Major for allowing us to present the deal. For those of you that don't know, I'm a big dog, been a big dog for 5 years, only been involved in the commercial real estate side, spent a lot of time coaching with David, and I've actually been a passive investor in 21 syndications, so I've got a lot of experience, and I'm very excited to be on this particular deal. I'm going to put my contact info in the chat so that you could click on the link, and in that link there is to book a call if you're interested in booking a call with me. So today we want to talk to you about some updates. One of the things, you were the first one, the big dogs were our first presentation, and to be honest, we didn't have all our details ironed out, and so we've been updating, answering questions. So the intent of this call is a very high-level overview of the deal again, to make sure that we do a little better job explaining what we're doing and how we're doing it, and then allow you to ask questions if you want or do whatever. So we're going to make sure that we get through all of this information in the time that's allotted. So, and also just a shout out for David's session tomorrow. I join it regularly, even as a frequent investor and a big dog. And in fact, you can't miss my presentation. I'm only being self-plugged there, but I'm doing one about passive investing and the power of being a passive investor in commercial real estate. So, and then also not on this call because they're traveling, also big dogs involved in this deal are Sanjay, Mike Bailey, Sanjay Agarwal, Mike Bailey, and then Amber and Liz are also working on this deal with us, and Janae. So we're super excited. So I'm going to start the presentation, and as I said, reach out to me if you want any information, and I'm going to start sharing. And as I said, what we'll do is Paul and I will be sort of switching around. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Sorry, I'm just going to somehow it went over to the other thing. So you can still see my screen? Awesome. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about XSpace Houston. This is a very unique development, and I want to explain a little bit how this came together, and Paul will give you a little more information. So there is an XSpace in Austin, which I'll upload a video so you can see the facility. We did do an open house, and we can have another one if we get enough group of people are interested. So Paul is a tenant in the Austin facility, not a tenant, an owner. So these are condos for sale. And he's been working with Massive Capital, which I've recently joined, and then we partnered with XSpace. So what we're doing is between PSA Properties and Massive Capital, we have purchased the land. We are raising money towards the deal. We are working with XSpace, who's building the facility, selling the units, and then we'll stay on as the manager of those particular units. And then us as investors and sponsors, once we reach the critical mass of units being sold, we will be bought out of the deal, and that's how we're able to give such a great return over a short period of time. This is an artist rendering the space, and we'll go through a little bit about that later. We're going to do executive summary, talk about our team, the space, location, and amenities, and then the project financials and timeline. I expect you all to read this in the 3 seconds that I have it up here. So really what this says is we're doing an investment disclosure. We're not financial advisors. We're not accountants. We're not lawyers. We obviously consult with them, and that you need to do your own due diligence on investing in deals. And even as David mentioned, you know, this is the big dogs themselves don't sponsor our deal, but you know, we've all gone through their training. So this is a bird's eye view of the XSpace facility in Austin. We'll tell you a little bit more about the location, but this is a new build. So we purchased the land. We are building this structure. This has high-end industrial mixed-use condos inside. that tenants will buy their space and then they renovate their space. And Paul will talk a lot more about the space. One of the things that weren't clear at the beginning is exactly the structure of what we're doing. So this is an executive summary. Again, I'm not going to read through all this. We can send this PDF to everybody, but XSpace is a very unique concept. And Paul will talk a little bit about how it came from Australia to America. Austin's the first location. Houston will be the second of many locations. But I want to make sure people are clear. This is not grandma's storage, okay? The people that are here, and I always say this, and Paul, I call them eclectic. These are wealthy, eclectic entrepreneurs that are looking for a work, play, sense of community space to house whatever they want to do. And Paul will talk a little bit about the tenant mix and how the different units are. But I want to make sure that people understand this is not extra space storage that you see on your corner. This is very high-end storage that's being built. And as I said in the chat, I'll put a link to the Austin facility, a quick video that we did. So we're going to talk a little bit about the team, and we're going to start with, so as I mentioned, XSpace, PS Properties, and Massive. And I'm going to let Paul introduce the XSpace team and then his own team.
Thank you, Trevor, and thanks everybody for being here. Thank you all you big dogs. Yeah, Ryan and I have been big dogs, I think, for about 5-6 years now. And we've enjoyed working with the group in all kinds of ways, worked with David a lot and Trevor and Sanjay. And so we've really enjoyed being part of the big dog group. So once in a while, interesting deals come along, and we kind of call this like a diversification play. So obviously, the last decade or so, multifamily has been great, and a lot of people have invested in multifamily. But there are other real estate assets out there that also come about and are a way of diversifying your portfolio. So we like diversification in our portfolio. We look at these as helping us to give us long-term growth in our portfolio. And give us the diversification in what we invest in, a lot because of the business cycle. Right now, the business cycle is who knows where it's going to go. We may be in a recession or not, but this is a play that is a little bit recession-proof because of the owners who buy here. They are not typically the demographic that is affected by a recession. So this whole concept of this space was started in Australia as this real estate company headed by Byron Smith and his father originally. They were very good at listening to their tenants in their storage spaces. So the storage spaces came out as typical storage spaces. They were building them in Australia, but listened to their tenants a lot and had a lot of data. There's a very data-driven company, and they listened to their tenants who wanted little bigger units. They wanted to do something else in their units besides just store their stuff that they don't use. So they started making their facilities a little bigger in size, and then the tenants, they started using those spaces other than storage. They would put a couch and a chair in there and, hang out in there. And then they'd put a TV in there and get Wi-Fi and things like that. And pretty soon they were kind of functioning in these units. And then they made the next facility even bigger unit sizes. And pretty soon people were doing all kinds of things in their space, and they called it flex space because it was very flexible. So people began to, like I said, put a TV and couch and chair and have people over and hang out in the afternoon or evening. And then they started to store their cars in these spaces because it was big enough for some of their cars. And then they made other facilities even bigger where you could store maybe 2 cars, 3 cars in some of these units. So it really turned out to be very, very popular because there aren't many spaces, storage spaces or functional spaces like this. They weren't many like that in Australia, and there aren't many like that, of course, in the United States either. So Byron and Howard and Lyle on this page are part of the XSpace team. They are well-seasoned businessmen who have a lot of contacts in the business executive space and that demographic, and began to talk to a lot of their people that they knew, and a lot of people really loved the concept of these spaces. So there's two words I like to talk about with these units, and one word is control, and the other word is flexible. So you can control your space. In fact, you can, in the XSpace Houston, all of the units will have their own air conditioning and heating and store and that sort of thing, so they can control your temperature, of course. And then you can have the flexibility of doing what you want in your unit. There's two things they don't want you to do in your unit. They don't want you to really live in your unit. They don't want you to live there overnight for weeks and weeks or so. And they don't want you to start fires in your units. So two pretty obvious things. But other than that, a lot of people are using these for hobbies and that sort of thing. So maybe that's how it all got started. So maybe, Trevor, we should go on to the next slide. And this is our company, PSC Properties. I work with my two adult children, Ryan and Lacey. I've been very fortunate to work with them. We've got a 25-year history of our company. We have done a lot of developments. We work with another company called Legacy Development, and we've done 40 or 45 now full cycle syndications. We've been part of about 500 million in asset value transactions. I have also been a head and neck surgeon for the last 30 years and did a lot of this with my family on the side. And these are a part of our properties right here. Mixed use property up in Fate and another emergency room, and then a townhome development that we are doing. So this is an example of some of the properties that we have currently. But this is us, and we have worked with the XSpace people and then brought this concept to Massive Capital.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. So I'll talk briefly about Massive Capital. As I mentioned before, there's Sanjay, Mike Bailey, and myself. We're all big dogs. And then we have Shirar. So those are the principals on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side is our investor relations, finance management. But together we've been doing quite a bit. XSpace is one of 4 deals we're currently doing right now. We're still very active in the multifamily space, as well as Paul and I just did a development in Georgetown, and we're going to go to phase 2 later. And an interesting thing about being diversified. So I'm actually a passive investor in Paul's medical center, and actually invested through David, who worked on that particular deal with him. So again, it's a very small world, but I definitely believe in diversification. It's super, super important to make sure you do that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the space and the thing of it. So again, Paul, I'll let you talk about the space, and then I'll take over the financial at the end.
Sure. Maybe right at this slide, David, I'm going to show you the hallways that are in the spaces. The units are along the outside walls of the facility and have windows and to their spaces. Next slide. Yeah, so again, this is a concept that is very unique, but there's an amazing amount of demand for this kind of space. So a lot of car enthusiasts like these spaces to store their cars safely and securely. A lot of people use this for their hobbies. In our space that we have in Austin, on one side of it, we are going to have it as a little art studio. My wife and the kids and myself, we all like to do pottery and other painting. My daughter's an artist, and we are going to do that in that corner of our space. My daughter's going to paint a mural inside of our space. And the other side of the space, we're going to have a little kitchen in that area there, and couch and chairs and that sort of thing. And then on top at the mezzanine, so you can put mezzanines into your units. And the mezzanines, we'll probably use that more as office. We'll kind of conduct our business there, and that's where that will get. So again, everybody uses their space a little bit differently, but it's been awesome to meet everybody. So maybe we'll go to the next slide, David. Yeah, this is the designer who designed this gorgeous building that we have. He has designed, he's a kind of a famous designer who knows Howard Ecker in Chicago. He's designed the Bangkok airport. He designed a beautiful baseball park in Mexico City. And these towers that you see in Las Vegas, he's the designer of those. So he's brought his design expertise to XSpace Houston and made it such a beautiful building. And this is the exterior that he has designed. It's 4 stories. We now have the lounge up on the 4th floor, and then all of the units inside. There are 88 units planned for Houston. On either side of the facility, there's going to be a car ramp, or I'm sorry, not a ramp, a car lift, like an elevator. And so that reduces the car ramp situation that we have in Austin. And so it makes the space much more efficient and easier to use. And you can see all the balconies that are out there. We, again, listened to our tenants, and the tenants like this kind of outdoor space and a terrace or mezzanine area. And so a lot of the units will have that as well. So it'll be a very beautiful space that they can use as they wish. And this is the interior. The interior, the units have a garage door type doors, and the doors are typically glass. If you like more privacy, you can frost your unit. But a lot of people will keep their doors open and then go out and talk to other owners. The hallway is usually pretty busy with people talking and things. You can park your car in the hallway area or park your car inside your unit. And this is the concept of the rooftop area and the lounge that they have at XSpace Houston. And these are pictures of actual units in the Austin facility. And you can see here how people are using. I think it's one of those things where you kind of got to see it to understand how people are using. And you can see on the left lower area there, the guy has a pool table in there and a couch and TV, big screen TV, and they're using it as an entertainment area and bring people over and have an event. And then they're for their own comfort, of course, as well. And you can see the couches and the chairs and the books and the reading area, the rugs on the floor. This is pretty typical of how people will outfit their unit and how they've done that. You can also see on the center picture bottom the overhead garage door that is clear and has glass. And again, a lot of people, once they go into their unit for the day, they keep it open. And then they go out and talk to the other people around, the other owners. You can also see the stairwell up in the upper right-hand corner. That's going up to the mezzanine. And then people will expand their space by putting a mezzanine. So these units are typically about 20 feet tall from floor to ceiling. And so obviously you can have the living space on the bottom and maybe a workspace up top or a hobby space up top with the mezzanine, and it increases your square footage. The other thing that happened, I'll go back again. One other thing that happens with this, and we have found out, is that the tenants then start to commiserate with other people, like I said, up in the lounge or around their unit and out in the hallways. And so it's really created a significant sense of community. And that, to me, is kind of one of the biggest sparks of this area. So we have people in our down the hall from us. One person sells and buys fish all over the world. He travels to Southeast Asia a lot, and it's been very interesting getting to know him with what he does in his business. Another person has a drone video company, and he comes and uses his unit to do some video taping and does that. Another person down the hall has a podcasting, does podcasting out of their unit. Another person down the hall has a music room and some music recording studio type of thing. So it's really interesting to see all these people. And again, you get out and meet them, and literally every week I meet someone new. In the XSpace Austin facility, there's 106 units, and I'm still getting to know everybody there. That space has only been open about 6 months or so, but within that first year of building, people they basically sold it all out. How is this different from office space? It's not office space at all. It is luxury storage. People are storing their cars. Another person down the hall from me has 6 luxury cars in his unit. He opened up the units. A lot of the people are finding out again that they are taking the wall down between 2 units and making them bigger. So they keep making them even bigger and bigger. One person, I think on the first floor recently, bought 4 units and opened them all up, took the walls down on all of them, and he's got a big open space. And he's going to use that for a lot of different things. I'm not sure quite yet, but it's not traditional office at all. The other part about this is, think about how the traditional office, if you commute to an urban center downtown and you're trying to park and you're commuting back and forth, maybe 30 minutes to an hour to your home to work in an office, that all has changed, of course, with the pandemic. With the pandemic, many people are trying to work from home more. But the other thing that has happened, as we found out, is if you work from home 100%, a lot of people want to get out of their home too. They want to get away from maybe their spouse or their dog or their kids or whatever else is happening. There was just an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday about how people are trying to get out of their home offices and find a space close to them where they can commiserate with other people. And so that, again, is how this XSpace has come together, responding to what's happening in the economy, happening after the pandemic, and it's created a very nice space for everyone. These are some of the unit types in Houston. This is still under development. And of course, some of these creates these nice rounded curved areas on the ends of the facility. There's windows, and you can see the stairway to the mezzanines. So these are different types of units. And like I said, some of these units that might be smaller, some people will just take out the wall between 2 units and buy 2 units and put them together. This is, again, pretty conceptual still of the floor levels. This is the ground level at Houston. People drive right in. And the concept here is you drive right into your unit. And the other thing is, you know, you don't have to park downtown to go to your office space, right? You can park in your unit, bring your car right into your unit or right outside of your unit as you come and use the facility. And then level 2 and level 3 are fairly the same. And you can see the car lifts on each end. And in the hallway there's 3-car space through there. You can park outside of your unit, like number 11 and 19, or you can drive down the middle to get to the car lift to drive out. So it's a very, very flexible way to get to your unit, again, to drive right into it. Many people like that feature so much. And level 4 at Houston is going to not have a garage. I mean, they're not going to have cars there. But again, another design on that one.
And we do have a couple of questions in the chat. So you're not supposed to live there. Doesn't mean you might not sleep in your office because you're working so hard, but it's not meant for people to have set up a permanent residence. And I believe, Paul, Austin has 108 condos and is 90% sold. Is that correct? Correct.
And that's just in 1 year. Again, the demand, they had that demand in Australia, and it's kind of slightly surprising that people wanted these larger units. And so they brought that demand in America, and it's taken off in America as well. So we have a good example in the Austin facility to go to Houston. And this
Right.
location, one of the other things about this facility in Houston, some of you who might know Houston, this is a phenomenal location on Old Katy Road in the Houston Design District, not too far from the airport and downtown Houston and things. All of the units are fully air conditioned and ventilated. 88 units are proposed. One thing I want to talk about with this location is that I was just talking to someone the other day who has a bunch of cars, and he said the only option he had to store his cars was in an airport hangar that he rented, but the airport hangar was 20 miles outside of town. So he had to go outside of town. This was in Dallas, and drive out there, get to his place and all that. An airport hangar is not as air conditioned and as secure that he wanted for his cars. So he's looking at this space and saying, this is perfect. It's in the city, close to everything else. In fact, this location is across the street from a Aston Martin car dealership and down the street from a Lamborghini car dealership. But it's not way out in the country somewhere where a lot of these people, typically they store their cars out there, and then that's always a hassle for them. So again, this location is just absolutely perfect in Houston.
Yeah, and then a couple of questions again in the chat. So there is extra spaces for people to park, your clients to come and visit you. And yes, these are condos. People purchase them, but people have purchased them just the same as you would make a passive investment, and then they've sublet them after they've purchased them. So the high-end drone folks, for example, that are in, they do military and high-end drones, they're tenants renting from a condo owner. So just to make sure that we're clear on that. So you buy this space and you can use it yourself or you can sublet it. And then again, I want to make sure we're clear. Tenants do all of the tenant improvements. So we give them a shell when they purchase it, and then all of these balconies or different things you see, those are all done by tenant improvements.
Yeah, we call them condos. I guess the meaning of the word condo to me is something you own. So that's the point here. And Trevor is so right. People then rent them out. So the other interesting thing that has happened is that quite a few of the owners in Austin are now buying units in Houston because they are sold on the concept. It works so well. And then they will rent out their units that they buy in Houston. So you've got someone who has already used the space, they know how it functions, they love the function of it all, and now they want to go to the next one. In fact, somebody told me the other day, he's going to follow XSpace wherever they build them in the United States, and he's going to buy at least 1 or 2 units in every one of those in order to rent them out as an investment.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to be clear too, so in Houston, we haven't even started building yet. Building will start in August, and 20% of the units are pre-sold, and 50% of those pre-sold are Austin's buying again. So again, proof is in the believing. And one thing we didn't talk a little bit on the 4th floor, but the 4th floor has quite a big common area. And has some other features that are due. So this area is set up to where people can come. And so we had a party, for example, we had 60 people, and ours was on the 4th floor in Austin. So there are common areas if you want to do more than a function outside of your space for people to be able to use it. And each floor has restrooms that are public restrooms. Each floor has a kitchenette, but you also could add a kitchenette, even a restroom, although very few do, within your own space. So just a little bit more clarification on that.
That's a great point, Trevor. And I do want to point out that the other thing that happened with all the people meeting each other is that now events are being planned at XSpace Austin. So the multiple events have been there. When the F1 race, Formula One race was in Austin that week, there were several events at XSpace Austin. A lot of the car enthusiasts would go there. They had the lounge rented out, and they would park their cars, their personal cars, there and all, talk about their cars. South by Southwest, the famous festival in Austin, also had an event here at XSpace Austin, and so using it for those events. And one last thing is the XSpace Austin facility was voted as one of the best commercial design buildings in 2023 in Austin.
Sorry, touched my screen. And people are actually running business. This is for eclectic, high net worth individuals. They do everything from run their business to one of the tenants. He has his office there. He has a small boardroom and he has a golf simulator. He's a great golf. So we met him on the tour, and he actually showed up at our open house, and he goes there and he works every day at his space. He has meetings within his space, and then he hangs out in the space with his client and friends and plays on his golf simulator. So everything from, we've seen units that were just storage, units that were just cars, units that were more office, to the drone guys. They've basically got it set up like a high functioning workspace with worktops, tables for all of their supplies. They've got their drones hung from the ceiling, and they also have a space up top that they work out of. So it's very interesting. You can actually take a U-Haul and drive it into the space. You can drive your car and get right up to your space, park in front of the space or inside your space if it's designed that way. So again, this is not normal, and it is zoned as storage, but you can also operate businesses and things out of it, but it's zoned as storage because that's the easiest use for it. And again, if you watch the video of the location, you'll see it's the basic structure is very simple. So we'll do a little bit about the project here. So this particular investment is 2 to 2.5 years. We are projecting a 1.5 multiple of your money. That works out to a 22.8% internal rate of return. For those that aren't familiar with that term, that basically is the time use of your money. We do have a 7% preferred return on this. So what that means is 7% cash on cash annual is paid out to the passive investors first before the general partners get any of their money. Then up until 17% IRR, it is a 70-30 split, and past 17% IRR, it is a 50-50 split. So I want to make sure that it's clear. So you put your investment in $100,000, you're going to get $49,500 on it. And so you would get a total of $149,500 in roughly 2.5 years. And that gives you an annualized return. And even though it's not really applicable, we do put a cash on cash just so it matches other offerings that you would see and you would do. And then this is basically a timeline. So we're here obviously in June. Our part of our deal, and we'll see a little bit more later, we're raising $3.2 million for this deal. We are already a third subscribed to the offering. We think in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be 100% subscribed. We have to have our money all done and all ready by July 15th. And then we're going to get our city approval, start the site work in September, October timeframe. The construction is going to take roughly 18 months. During this construction period, they're doing all of the pre-sales, and then post-construction, when they're up and running and they have their certificate of occupancy, they put it in. So the general partnership team has we purchased the land, and you'll see that in the description. So we've purchased the land, we've put that money into the deal. So the general partnership team roughly has $1 million in the deal. And then the rest is financed out. And so investor returns start when 70% of the units are sold, and at 90%, basically you're going to be taken out of the deal and then XSpace will stay over. So XSpace stays over as the operator of this property. They will set up their homeowners or business association where that will run the facility. So we start collecting money at 70% pre-sold, and then we are bought out at 90. So that period in there is roughly about a 3-month period is what we estimate. So you'll start to get some distributions. And again, remember, until you make a 7% on your money, so roughly $14,000, general partners will receive no money other than on our matching passive investments. We'll make no money. And then once you get that, it goes to a split. And then if we exceed the 17% IRR, the split changes. So this is a little bit mind numbing, but this is all of the sources and uses. And again, this is a much larger project that we are a part of. So we purchased the land for just over $4 million. We have soft costs, lawyer costs, and all those things. Hard costs are basically building the facility, $25 million. General and marketing, we have a almost $9 million marketing budget to be able to sell the particular project. We have almost a $2 million contingency built into it. We do have a loan fee of $600,000, and we are required to put about $1 million up in interest reserves to cover the project. So the entire project is $36.5 million. We do have senior debt of just under $25 million. LP equity is $11.7 million, of which PSC and Massive Capital are bringing $3.2 million. And yes, interest rates are crazy right now, but we have underwrote this as if we're paying our max. So we do have a max. So right now we're paying LIBOR plus 4%. So that's roughly 9% right now. Interest rate cannot exceed 10%. So again, this is a very unique type of loan. These loans are also being guaranteed by the partners, and they're full recourse loans. There's a lot of things, just because construction is completely different than a multifamily where you can get non-recourse loan. The builder is somebody that built the Austin facility. I drew on a blank on their name, Paul. I'm sorry.
Arco Murray.
Arco Murray. And for those of you that know my past, I worked for iFly Indoor Skydiving, opened 46 of 80 worldwide locations, and Arco Murray actually built 50% of the US locations. And they also build all of the Topgolf, if you've seen Topgolf, Andretti Racing. They do a lot of high-end industrial type work. So one of the things we tried to do over here on the right is break it down kind of, because we're selling space, right? That's what this boils down to, and people will have different size and different configurations of it, right? So on the land purchase price, we've broken it down on different costs. We've taken the debt and we've broken it down on different costs. And then at the bottom, again, this is a bit complicated, and we spent a lot of energy trying to make this clear. And thank you to all of you that have asked us questions that got us to make this clear. So basically, our cost is $322 a square foot. And again, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. This is not grandma stories. This is high net worth eclectic. We are selling them at an average of $500 a square foot for unfinished industrial / common workspace. So there's quite a bit of delta, and that of course is where our profit factor. On the pre-sales, they've already exceeded the $500 square foot, but we use that as our conservative underwriting. I think Austin average was about $480, and Houston is a bit more, and part of that is because of the location is a lot better. So we've put a lot of this information in here. This wasn't here before. It's a little bit confusing because this is a very different financial structure from most of your passive investors. And yes, this qualifies for self-directed IRA. A couple of other things that we want to make sure that we're clear just on the differences, right? Part of the reason these have a higher IRR associated with them, these are different projects. So there's not going to be depreciation. There's not going to be cost segregation because this is a new build. So I want to make sure some of the things that are a little bit different that we set expectations, but yes, we can take self-directed IRA, 401k. We even had an investor who funded out of a trust fund. It's a separate trust that's set up, so we can definitely take it that way. And then obviously you can reach out to Paul or myself. I'm gonna stop sharing so that you can see. I believe you can unmute yourself and ask questions. You can put them in the chat. We're very excited about this project. I don't know if we can unmute and ask questions, or maybe we did such a good job on our presentation that nobody has a question.
Hi, Trevor. It's
Hi
Chris.
there. Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you. Hey, I had a quick question. I was wondering, can you tell me a little bit about, I guess, the management part during the construction phase? Who's going to be managing the project during that
XSpace
phase?
manages everything. That's
XSpace will
what they
be.
do. XSpace manages everything. So the units are priced at $500 a square foot, to answer the question in the chat. That average price of.
And I want to point out that, as Trevor said, believe it or not, $500 a square foot is a conservative because they're already getting contracts signed for much more than that.
Yeah.
And what happened, this is a development project. And so one thing we learned from Austin is that the average monthly growth in sales price. So the first units that are purchased are the most economical, if you'd say. And as they go month by month and they get less and less units, the price goes up. And what they've experienced in Austin is that it's been about a 5% increase in sales price per month. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, so there is no average square foot, but Paul, your original one unit, it's roughly 30 feet by 20 feet.
Yeah, and 20 feet tall. And so our square footage is approximately 450 to 500 square foot in each unit. But then, of course, then we put a mezzanine in, and that increases our usage, our square footage for usage. And I don't know what that equates to exactly, but they're approximately that. But the units go from, Ryan, you know that number, from
yeah, about 450 on the small side and up to, over 2,000 square feet on the large side. So, yeah.
And as we mentioned before, but I just want to reiterate. So Paul was one of the original purchasers of his condo space in XSpace Austin. I believe, did you buy both at the very beginning, or did you decide you wanted more?
Bought both at the same time. Yep.
And then how many people, after they saw what you did, wanted more?
It's funny. Byron was telling me that, our units are kind of in the middle of the floor. So people are walking by it all the time. And then we got our mezzanine up kind of early. And then finally, again, there's a visualization thing. I mean, all these kind of things. How can you visualize this space? But once they saw 2 units together and a mezzanine on top, a bunch of people said, that's what I want. And so then they started buying a unit next to them. Many people did. I don't know how the number, and then took down the wall in between and made it 2 units as one. So,
yeah, I'm not sure if you know what people are typically getting when they buy one and lease it to somebody. I don't know.
And I really don't know that answer because it's really up to the unit owner themselves. But I know that several of the owners got brokers to help them lease them out, just like they would leasing a house or something. So again, it's real variable depending on the size and whether you're leasing it for. So some people, again, are leasing them for office space, for their startup company, or for hobby space, that kind of thing. So I think the leasing is real variable in there depending on your use.
And then they do have a condo association that is represented by the owners. They have a board of directors, and they hire a management company that manages the facility. And so they would manage also rule enforcement. So someone asked if you had a bad neighbor or whatever. This is all managed just like it would be in any homeowner/condo association. There is a board of directors. You also use them to facilitate. So for example, when we did our party, Lacey and Ryan and Paul, they liaised with the association so that we made sure that they knew we were using the space. We brought in caterers, we brought in valet parking, because one thing Austin doesn't have is enough parking. Houston, they fixed that problem because they realized it. And so we actually brought in a valet service just to be sure that, because they were going to drive the units into the space, it was just a way to make it easier for people to come and go from our event. But all of those things are arranged through the event space, through the condo association. And then you have fees, and then there will be additional fees if you need additional services. You also have mailbox, and I think they can get your mail if you're an absentee or whatever it is. This is, you know, set up very much like a, you know, but again, very mixed use, right? Because people conduct office business there, people use it just as storage, people have things delivered there. It's quite a bit of a difference.
There's a conference room there also in the lounge, Trevor. And the conference room, of course, can be rented out, and it's got full audio visual with big screen TV, and all. You can do a presentation in there, have a meeting in there, and just reserve it. I don't even think there's a fee, but just reserve it. And so again, a very neat aspect of that.
And Austin's been 1 year, and it's 90%, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And again, Austin was built during COVID, right? A very challenging time, very unique time. And they're just finishing off leasing the last few locations.
Yeah, it's a great point, Trevor. It was right in smack dab in the middle of COVID, trying to build this facility. And so they had all the typical issues that people had during COVID to build, with getting brick and mortar and all kinds of things. And so the company, Arco Murray, as Trevor said, that builds the Top Golfs on those places, built it, and they are on board to build Houston as well. So we have a good relationship with them, and they know what they're doing, and we look for a great build in Houston as well.
So these have been awesome questions. I know in theory we've used up our time. One of the things with these particular meetings is we don't get a list of who comes to these meetings. So I've reshared my contact info. If you have more questions, if you would like to talk about it, we are planning to have another tour of the Austin facility. We can send information to you. You know, so, but again, I know in theory we've reached the end, but I just want to make sure if we have any other final questions. And we do really appreciate David and Kenneth Major allowing us to, I guess you could say, represent with a little bit more of the information at the end. We're very excited about this project. I know Lucy's already asked me 10,000 questions, so she can quite on that.
Lucy was at our event.
She was.
Yeah.
She came to our event. A lot of big dogs came to our event, and several have already invested in the project. Yeah, it's definitely unique. This is, without a doubt, if you're looking for something that's unique, that's cutting edge. And again, we didn't mention this earlier. I'm sorry. Where it's being built is the richest zip code almost in America, but definitely in Houston. So again, this is Austin. It's out by Lakeway, by the dam. So again, not cheap ground, but in Houston, we're in a prime location. And again, with the familiarity of a lot of exotic car owners are also tenants or buyers of the units, because they like that concept of driving their cars up and doing things. And so again, right across the street from an Aston Martin dealership and several other car dealerships in that area. So thank you so much, David.
Hey, Trevor, I think a question just popped up. Marilyn has a question on the phasing of this current.
So the land has already been purchased. So Massive Capital and PSC purchased the land. And so we're bringing the land along with investor capital into the deal. And on our particular raise, we're raising $3.2 million, and we're about a third committed right now, with a cutoff date of July 15th. So this is the kind of thing I think if you snooze, you lose. I don't want to scare people because that, we want to make sure you're comfortable with the investment, but we feel very confident that this will fill up because it's unique. And it's underwritten under the 10% debt. It's under, all of the things that are making other deals not work. This deal still works with all of those parameters, which makes it, a really good investment.
And
To answer that last question, I'm sorry, David. To answer that last question,
go ahead.
the land has all been completely entitled. It's all ready to go. Has all the utilities there, completely entitled with the city of Houston. So it's shovel ready, if you know that term. And construction is set to begin August 1st.
And so the 2 to 2.5 year time frame is basically the conclusion of the whole project when everything is sold. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, and again, you know how you try to predict these things, David. You try to say, you try to be conservative, but right now we've got about 20% of units pre-sold, and we think in the next couple months there are some contracts out there that are not signed yet, but they're extremely interested. Several people want to buy multiple units, so we think conservatively by time in August here we'll have 25% sold. And the other thing is we only need to get to 70% sold, so another 50% sold to start distributions. So I don't want to say it's going to be earlier than 2 years, but it could be, but you know how it goes. We want to be conservative, certainly 2 to 2.5 years, the distributions should be there.
Yeah, and there was a question again. So at 70% sold, we start making distributions to the passive investors, to the limited partners. Again, as general partners, we take nothing until you've gotten 7% cash on cash accumulative on your deal, and then the general partners start making. And our goal is to be, we will be removed and bought out 100% of the project at 90% pre-sold. Again, our goal is 18 months, okay, but this is construction. This is a lot of variables. This is a unique product. And so we added it to 2.5 years, because again, you just never know what will happen, the timing. Luckily Houston is a lot easier to build than Austin, but it still takes time. And again, our goal is that the 70% sold happens before occupancy happens. That's the internal goal. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, David.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
And don't forget to come to David's event tomorrow. It's again, I'm a pretty active guy, and I think I come to at least 2 or 3 presentations every year. I learn something. That is the beauty of commercial real estate. You just never stop learning. Because every deal is different, every situation is different, and we thank the big dogs and Candace Major for having all this great training and allowing us to have this platform. So again, we don't get your records, so reach out to myself or Paul, but I'm super responsive, as everybody knows. And if for some reason you do want a tour, we're trying to set up a couple of tours. We're trying to not do them one-offs, trying to get a few people that would work on some times of the Austin facility, and also check out the video that I put in the chat for the Austin facility.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul, Trevor, and Ryan. Thanks for coming by to give this presentation. And everyone, I think Trevor has put up his contact information on chat, so please make sure to, or Ryan just put up the, the PSC Properties link there. So I would recommend you guys go on there and put in your information so they can be in touch with you. And we're all big dogs here, right? So Paul, Ryan, and Trevor, as many of you know, they're all big dogs. Just to make sure that that's clear, because sometimes people thought, oh, are they big dogs? Are they just coming on to present to us big dogs? one thing I want to clarify is that we never will have anyone who's not a big dog to present the big dogs, right? So that's one of the rules. And so everyone who does a presentation to us big dogs on a deal, you can bet on it that they're big dogs. So with that, guys, since there are no other questions, I'm going to wrap up to this call again. Go to the chat box on there. Ryan has put up a link for, I suppose it's a contact form, and just go on there and put in information so they can be in touch, and you can continue to network with fellow big dogs, right? So thank you everyone for attending, and I hope you guys join me and many other big dogs tomorrow during the Big Dog Commercial Workshop. For those of you who came late, tomorrow is the Big Dog Commercial Workshop, all day virtual workshop, 9 to probably 5-ish, 6. And you can go to bigdogcalendar.com, and look for Texas Commercial Real Estate Investing Workshop for big dogs, right? And that's the workshop, and go register for it so that you'll get the Zoom link to join the workshop tomorrow. I hope to see everyone tomorrow. And with that, we're signing off. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to hearing from everybody. Thanks, David, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Ryan.
David.